Welcome and thanks for tuning in to I Heart Art. I'm Madeleine Culp, I'm your artist for this episode, and you'll be joining me in drawing a beautiful Willie Wagtail that's screeching into the universe. What a time to be alive. If you're following along at home, you'll need a just blank white sheet of paper. I'm using 4 pens today because I want to create a few different effects in my drawing. I'm using a very thick art line pen that is 1.2, and then I'm using a 0.7, at 0.5 and at 0.3. So I'm not going right down to the bottom of the scale, but I am keeping it a bit chunkier today. So I got a head start because I'm too slow to do these in all of the episodes. So I've done a vague outline of my design that I've amalgamated from a few different shots I found of Willie Wagtails. And we're going to play with contrast and we're going to play with detail for this one too. Willie Wagtails have these beautiful fluffy white chests, and in this design I've decided to leave it totally white, so we're just playing with the void again here, the endless void. So we're going to contrast that to a lot of movement and block colors in the body. So, should we start with a fun part of this drawing, which is the beak? So I wanted to have a very proud and loud Willie Wagtail announcing to the world some information. So it has a very open beak, which I've started. You'll notice that the beak is rounded, unlike a parrot, or it's a lot shorter than a magpie's would be. So I've made the line quite round, and I'll come round with it and fill it in. There is normally, a little nostril space. It's kind of right far back in the Willie Wagtail, so I might actually just make sure I don't forget about it, and I'm going to draw a circle and then fill around that, making sure that I leave that in. And we're going to kind of make the beak a little bit separate from all the detail of the feathers that we'll soon fill in. So we're going to keep it like a lovely block color. I'm using the 0.7 for this one, but I could easily switch it out because I'm just doing straight block to the 1.2, which is biggest you can go. And it gives us a really nice clean line. If you're following at home and using a ballpoint pen, just kind of keep the lines close together and go over them. And if you're following at home with one of these art lines, don't forget about the pressure, and if you're leaving your pen in one spot, it will change the color. So I'm kind of gonna angle it down, the beak, and then kind of just go around where the two beaks meet, and I'm gonna fill in the bottom beak. So that's pretty straightforward. Apparently Willie Wagtails are one of the most endemic birds. They're found all over Australia, and in a lot of folklore it was thought that they will share your secrets. If you're at a camp, they'll fly away with your secrets, so don't go gossiping around a Willie Wagtail is the lesson for that. So yeah, this is looking quite cartoonish at the moment, but I'm going to fix that when we go in for the details. I just want to get the rough idea of what I'm doing. And then I'm going to get the 0.5 to begin with, and I'm going to just go down and then around and kind of come back close. So that is sort of the shape, and I'm keeping the middle of the beak white just to contrast between the outer beak, and then I'm gonna put the little tongue in there so it's singing out loud. Alright, so that's the basics of the beak for now. I might play around with that a little bit more as we move through. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to shape out the areas that are going to be black, the block colors. What is amazing that I didn't know before drawing Willie Wagtail is that they have eyebrows. I've never got close to one in the wild to notice that, but they do. They have these amazing shocks of like lightning shaped eyebrows. So let's do that. Again, we're going to play with a void, so we're going to just draw around where we want that to be. And like this, and then I'm going to go down. I think they're all pretty different. So there's that eyebrow. And then we're going to position the eye kind of just where the eyebrow starts to go up. And because the eye is going to be all black, let's keep a little circle free for the light. Mostly they look pretty round, the eyes. They're not too almond shaped. So we'll keep it round for now. You can always sort of tweak the shape a little bit more with the thickness of how you color it in if you want to come back to it. But doing the beak and the eye of a bird straight up really gives it its character, I think. So you can start your drawing any way you want, but I often like to start there because then I'm like, okay, I know what I'm playing with. I know what kind of bird I've got in front of me. So let's go back to that block color and draw it back because we're on the side and I want to play with the different texture. We're going to kind of keep it to maybe where the wings sort of start. So a little bit further, but we'll just keep it like this. And it will go under the little lightning eyebrow as well. And then we will bring it up over, almost meeting the beak, but not quite. And then we get to color it in. How fun. Even though this is feathers and you could, you know, go for a texture thing, I'm gonna try for the contrast. See how we go. I think that Willie Wagtails are pretty, one of those birds that you just notice everywhere. So if you were to draw it, it's a little nice variation on a familiar bird for everyone if you were doing it for a gift or something like that. So I'm going to keep filling in this black section while you go and take a break. So I look forward to showing you where I've got to when you return on I Heart Art. Welcome back to I Heart Art with me, Madeleine Culp. We'll continue with our Willie Wagtail. So we did some blocking of colours and now we get to do feathers, which is very fun. I've chosen a 0.3 to get really fine details and then we'll get thicker as we work down the bird. So a little bit of faint, very light pressured strokes to start off around the eye area. I've also done a little ring of dots around the eye itself to sort of indicate that area, which doesn't show up too well on these photos, but around the bird, around each bird's eye. So once we get to maybe about, let's just say near where the top beak ends, I'm going to change up the texture and I'm going to start trying to depict how beautiful and fluffy these little feathers are by doing tufts. So I'm doing tufts of 3 at a time and I'm grouping them together roughly the same length, and I'm going to try and get a bit of sense of movement with it. I'm still pretty light on the pressure of the pen at the moment as well. So we're going to continue on downwards, but then when we get to the bottom beak, we're going to kind of move with the direction of the beak. I just added 4 tufts as well, so I'm getting them lighter but denser, just to get some nice direction. You really want to take your viewer's eye on a little round the world journey on your artwork. So you want to get all of the little tufts going together in the one direction, and so that will help bounce your viewer's eye around your piece. I'm getting a little bit firmer with my pressure as we work down, but I really want to try and fill this in here. And kind of get that density. So you can see that you're starting to play and see this contrast between the really thick dark areas, the wispy lines, and then the little tufts. So when I get back towards the eye, I'm gonna just go back to my 3 tufts. But I'm gonna try and continue on this motion down the face. Now, what I also wanna do in such a 2D piece of work is I wanna get an idea of the breast of the bird. So I wanna play with this texture, mixing up bold 3 tufts and then little in between light touches where I can. And hopefully, if we keep doing it, we will get a bit of a feeling of the breast of the Willie Wag, which is the really distinctive feature as it's so different to the rest of the plumage. So let's keep going. It's very calming to do. If you have glasses, I would recommend wearing it because it's very fine work. And then when I'm going down from the eye, I want to kind of drag people's eye down this way. So I'm going to do the little tufts smaller, and then I'm going to increase the size. So apparently Willie Wagtails are quite an aggressive bird. They're quite small, but they can have been known to attack kookaburras, which are a lot bigger than them. So, you know, standing up for themselves. Why not? And they mate for life, so that's pretty cute. They're romantic and territorial and will fight to the death. So what an all-rounder. All right, keep going down. So I'm gonna start spacing them out as I go down, and I'm gonna do less of the in-between ones, because I ideally wanna kind of get an idea of the fact that the bird's on a bit of a side angle. And I'm gonna do this till I get to the wing, which maybe I should jump a little bit ahead just to show you what I'm gonna do with the wing. So I wanna do the wing area kind of, if we can imagine it, down here to link to the tail. And to capture all the lines that you can see in the wing, I'm gonna do sort of longer repeating strokes. So we'll start here, about here. That seems like a good place to start. I know I'm doing it with no draft, which is great and silly at the same time. You have to be bold, but you know what? It makes you take risks. So as you can see, I'm just trying to get that general idea of the feathers crossing on top of each other. So I'm just breaking it down, the shapes really. I'm gonna do these smaller sort of sections here, but then I'll do a bigger one around here to kind of give the hint of the side of the wing. And really you can do as many as you like. I like to do quite a few. Also just changes up the idea of the feathered texture. But I'm doing them all with the uplift stroke on the back of the bird to give that idea that the wing is kind of nestled in there, or cozy. For the transition between the really jet black and the white, I am gonna kind of be a little bit messy with how I make those two areas meet, because you can see on the real birds there's white in the black, so there's quite a bit of a merging of the two areas. So I'm going to draw a border with the little 3 tuft technique we were doing, and then that also gives me a lovely way to make sure I'm keeping within this border and not kind of messing up the concept a little bit. So I'll do that a little bit, and then I'm going to keep continuing on with these sort of wing patterns, I guess. In my original drawing, I've got them quite thick at the the top, and I've got them a bit thinner at the bottom. So I'll go back and do these ones a bit thicker. I think I use this many different sort of patterns just to break up the blockness of the Willie Wagtail. So I'm gonna keep drawing these lines while you go and take a break, and I'll meet you back here for more I Heart Art. Thanks very much for joining us on I Heart Art. Let's get back to our Willie Wagtail, shall we? We're going to do the most important part of the Willie Wagtail, although not magnificently on display in this reference that I'm using, the tail. So I am going to make my tail black. So I'm going to play with the blocking that we did at the top in the bottom as well. But I want to keep a little bit of white in the sense of like the veins of the feathers. So we get a bit of an idea of like how many feathers make up that beautiful tail. So I've gone ahead and I've actually left space for the white, and I'm going to color around it. And obviously this isn't like, you know, exactly how the bird looks in the wild, but I really like to just kind of capture character more than anything else. I think if the personality of the animal is shining through, that's exactly what I'm going for, and that's what I want. That's how I can see if something is working or if it isn't. So we are just gonna use a really thick pen and go over the tail part and making sure that you keep these veins in. There'll be different thickness throughout, and that's fine because, you know, we're in nature and nothing is perfectly symmetrical in nature. It also gives a little bit more character, and it makes the viewer remind themselves that a human drew this and it wasn't drawn like by machine. And yeah, it kind of makes it a bit more alive because there's nothing too regulated about it, I think. So we'll just continue on. I do like drawing birds. I think birds have a lot of personality. I've never really like gone bird spotting, but I imagine that wouldn't be the worst thing to do in the world. If you've got a bit of time, get out there. So we'll just continue on. I've done like a little one on that side, so maybe I'll just do a little one on this side. You can always change most things up in your design as you go along. If you think, my eye doesn't feel like that's really looking balanced now. My eye's telling me I need to balance it out. So we'll continue on. And this is why I love these really thick pens. Make this work pretty easy. I also really like to go over when I've finished to like kind of seal off the drawing and make it feel a bit more complete with this really thick pen on the outline of the shape of the animal. And normally that is the black, but if I was doing kind of flowers or anything like that, I would use a color as well. So now that it's colored in, you kind of get a sense of why we'll leave those veins in. So that's kind of also hopefully giving the illusion of like it being quite long. And if you feel like your Willie Wagtail tail isn't as long, just slowly increase the thickness of the black until you get to a level that you think is appropriate. Be careful though, because you could really mess up your shape if you go too much. Maybe just do a little bit. And just to give that illusion that it's going on, under the branch, I'm going to continue this black out, but it's going to meet with those patterns that we did before. So it's all coming together. Alright. Okay, so there's that bit, and then I want to do the legs, and again, the Willie Wagtails do have a bit of detail in their leg, but I'm going to use the block color to do it. So I'm going to just mark out where I think the nails might be and fill in around them. and just so that we've got this sort of harmony between the head, the tail, and the feet. And then we're playing with all those fun lines inside the bird itself. I've kind of done a bit of a detail here with the feathers coming down. It's really small, so if I want to keep it, I can just make sure there's a little bit of white, that little bit of void around it, but if it doesn't really matter to me, I can just kind of color through it. I'm not sure, so I'm just going to leave this one with a little bit of white to give me an option, because that's it. Once you commit in ink, there's no going back. Unless you want to start a new sheet, which is totally fine. You should see my pad. I have so many failed half heads of birds. So many abandoned images. Sometimes I do go back to them, but most of the time they're just left forever. Alright, so now we've coloured in the legs. So I've left a little bit of white to indicate that there are claws going on in there. And I'll probably not thicken up the branch as much as I thicken up the animal. So for that, I'm going to just go back to this 0.3 pen, and I'm going to just go over it a little bit, and I might make some parts of the branch a bit thicker just to give it a bit of dimension. But I'm not going to make it pop as much as the animal because I really want that to be the hero. So I'll go back. And then at this point in your drawing, you can kind of step back and see where you want to go into more detail. Because we're playing with the black and white colors, it's sometimes good to like sit back and go, oh, too much there, not enough there, this is interesting. And maybe there's these little spots that are gonna stick out. Don't forget to play with the pressure as well of your pen, because that will really influence how your final drawing looks too. Feathers are tricky. I don't know, I've done them a few different ways, but this is just pretty fun. We've got all these different variations to play with. And the Willie Wagtail's wings are a little bit shorter when they're tucked in than some other types of birds, so that's why I've kind of gone with playing with these longer lines. So now I'm going to just go into really little delicate single strokes, because there are a little bit of these fluffy little feathers around their beak, and I want to capture that. So that's a bit fun, especially here as well, just a little bit to give that sense of texture. And then I'm just going to go back and fill where I need to, making sure that I've got that nice kind of shape. So I might just cheat and put a little sneaky couple of the longer lined feathers in here. There we go. You could even play around with some of these ones too and emphasize some if you really want to make sure that I've got that sense of the roundness of the wing. But I reckon that's almost done. Probably go around and clean up a few little areas, but I think I've finished my Willie Wagtail. So I hope you've had fun joining me and drawing at home. It's been a delight to walk you through the Willie Wagtail with me. I've been Madeleine Culp, and this is I Heart Art.